The year was 1914. Europe was the most powerful continent in the world. Cities were growing fast, industry was booming, technology was advancing rapidly. From the outside, everything looked stable, but behind the scenes, Europe had become a ticking time bomb. The great powers were locked in a dangerous rivalry. Britain controlled the largest empire on Earth. France wanted to protect its power. Russia was expanding, and Germany wanted to become the strongest nation in Europe. Countries were building massive armies. Factories were producing weapons at an unbelievable pace, and everyone knew that a major war was getting closer. But nobody could imagine that this war would change human history forever. Everything began with what seemed like a small event. June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was visiting the city of Sarajevo in Bosnia. But someone was waiting for him that day. A 19-year-old Serbian nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. He had one goal: to assassinate Franz Ferdinand. As the royal convoy moved through the streets, Princip pulled out a pistol, and within seconds, the shots that changed history were fired. Franz Ferdinand and his wife were killed. This was not just an assassination. It was the spark that ignited a chain reaction leading to the deaths of millions. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the attack. Soon after, they sent Serbia a harsh ultimatum filled with impossible demands. Serbia accepted some of them, but not all. And on July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Normally, this could have remained a small regional conflict, but Europe's alliance system changed everything, because the major powers were tied together through military agreements. Russia supported Serbia, Germany backed Austria-Hungary, France stood with Russia, and Britain feared Germany's growing power. Within days, almost all of Europe was pulled into war. At first, many people believed the war would end quickly. Young soldiers marched off with excitement. Some believed they would return home before Christmas, but reality was far more horrifying. This war would become one of the deadliest conflicts humanity had ever seen, because technology had made killing easier than ever before. Machine guns could fire hundreds of bullets within minutes. Massive artillery cannons could destroy targets from miles away. And for the first time in history, chemical weapons were being used on a large scale. The Western Front quickly turned into hell on Earth. Soldiers lived inside endless trench systems stretching across Europe. The trenches were filled with mud. Rain poured constantly. Rats crawled everywhere. Disease spread rapidly, and death was always nearby. For many soldiers, simply raising their head above the trench for a few seconds could mean instant death. Enemy snipers were constantly watching. In some battles, thousands of soldiers died within only a few hours. Yet sometimes the front lines moved only a few meters. Human life had become almost meaningless. In 1916, the Battle of Verdun began. It became one of the most brutal battles in history. The fighting lasted for around 300 days. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers were killed. That same year, the Battle of the Somme began. On the very first day, the British Army suffered around 60,000 casualties, one of the worst days in British military history. But the war was not limited to Europe. The Ottoman Empire had also joined the conflict. Battles spread across the Caucasus, Iraq, Palestine, and especially Gallipoli. The Gallipoli campaign became one of the most important battles of the war. The Allied powers wanted to capture the Dardanelles Strait and reach Istanbul, but Ottoman forces resisted fiercely. Months of brutal fighting followed. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives. As the war continued, economies began collapsing. Factories focused entirely on weapons production. Food shortages spread everywhere. Millions of civilians struggled with hunger. Fear dominated cities across Europe, and countless families waited every day for terrible news from the front lines. Then, in 1917, a major turning point changed the war forever. The United States entered the conflict. German submarine attacks and rising political tensions pushed America into war. Fresh troops, new weapons, and enormous economic support completely shifted the balance of power. Germany slowly began losing strength. At the same time, Russia experienced a massive revolution. The Russian monarchy collapsed, and Russia withdrew from the war. But even that was not enough to save Germany. By 1918, Germany's resources were running out. Its soldiers were exhausted, its people were starving, and the war could no longer continue. On November 11, 1918, an armistice was finally signed. At exactly 11 a.m., the guns fell silent. After 4 years of destruction, the war was over, but the damage was unimaginable. Around 20 million people had died. Millions more were wounded. Entire cities had been destroyed. Economies had collapsed. And the world had changed forever. The Ottoman Empire was dismantled. Austria-Hungary disappeared. The German Empire collapsed. And Russia entered a completely new era. But perhaps the greatest impact of the war was psychological, because humanity had finally witnessed the true horror of modern warfare, and the anger growing after the war would eventually lead to an even greater catastrophe. World War I had ended, but in reality, the door to World War II had just been opened.